Good afternoon. I just finished watching Lonestar's 1776 video dealing with the Second Amendment rights, dealing with the right to bear arms, and of course we all agree with the right to bear arms. It's a basic basic right to protect yourself and to defend your own life and your freedoms. But in his background there, Rudy has a big Confederate flag, and this is a contradiction. For some reason, people think this Confederate flag represents freedom when it doesn't. The Confederates were not fighting for freedom; they were fighting for the right to keep other people enslaved. And don't get this, and don't get it just by this bogus nonsense that they put out about states' rights and that they were being oppressed and this other nonsense. When Lincoln was elected, he got elected on the platform, the Republican platform, to stop the spread of slavery into the new territories. They would not accept that. That's why they rejected Lincoln's election and intended to break away. Not for freedom, not for the idea that they were being oppressed. They had total representation in Congress and the Senate and the Supreme Court, but because they saw the handwriting on the wall that slavery was going to eventually be taken care of because it was repulsive. And it goes against everything the United States was founded for in the Declaration of Independence. And that's what the Confederates who were against the Declaration of Independence, they believe it only referred to white men, that it was a political statement. They rejected Thomas Jefferson's view that all men were created equal and endowed by the Creator with certain inalienable rights, the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And they were going to deny this to one certain group of people, the blacks. And so they had a right to enslave them and this type of thing. So we'll see what the Constitution they fought for. That when you look at the Confederate flag, remember it represents something. And they want to try to make it look like it represents freedom, that they're fighting against for freedom and against tyranny, when in fact they were fighting for the right to enslave other people, other men and women. The Lawrence Vance book here on the Confederate Constitution here, and compares it to the American Constitution, and these guys like Ruckman and Hoffman and Vance, these guys are all pro-Confederate. In the act like Lincoln was some monster, against states' rights, imposing his will. When Lincoln came to office, he said, "I understand my constitutional limitations," and but he was elected to stop the spread of slavery, and he was going to do it. Here's what the Confederates say in their Constitution that the Confederate flag was fighting for. In all such territory, the institution of Negro slavery, they put Negro slavery right in their Constitution. The American Constitution doesn't do that. It was repugnant to the Founding Fathers. They knew that they had to deal with slavery. They set it aside while they were fighting the war, the Revolution, but they were still repugnant. You don't see the word slavery show up in the American Constitution, U.S. Constitution. But the Confederates had no qualm of putting the word Negro in there. Because of course they don't want to be enslaved. They put Negro in there because they don't want white men enslaved, but they'll put Negroes under slavery. And then they cry the Confederate flag isn't racist. Yeah, okay. In all such territory, the institution of Negro slavery as is now exists in the Confederate States shall be recognized and protected by Congress, by the territorial government, and the inhabitants of the several Confederate States and territories shall have the right to take to such territory any slaves lawfully held by them in any of the states or territories of the Confederate States. That's what they were fighting for. They were fighting for the right to expand their slaves and taking slaves everywhere they want. They felt the idea that that they couldn't the new territories that were going to be formed, obviously they'd be free states, and eventually the slave states would lose their power as the free states grew in representation. And that was the idea that the Founding Fathers always intended for slavery to eventually die out. There's a contradiction to the American the Declaration of Independence. So these guys who pretend to be for love, freedom, and by the way, the gun laws that we all hate, that they talk about, the gun control laws, they began in the South, on when the Confederate States had come back into the Union, and the blacks were voting Republican. and therefore they had to terrorize them and to get them to stop voting, and therefore they took away their guns and passed gun control laws in order so freed blacks could not get guns to defend themselves. And that's the fact of where gun control laws began, to keep the freed blacks under control. So when you see these guys waving the Confederate flag around, it's just like some emblem of freedom. What it is, the Confederate flag represents the treason against the American Constitution of a lawfully elected president of the United States, and the enslavement of millions of black people because the Confederates rejected the Declaration of Independence. Amen. Thank you.